As a graduate student at Princeton University in the French Language and Literature Department, I'd like to speak more about my experience there. Typically what happens is I have about 3 seminars per semester. Now a semester would be from, let's say, September to December. That would be the first semester, fall semester. And the second semester during the academic year would typically be from January to, let's say, May or so. And during that time during a seminar actually, what happens is there's quite a bit of interaction between the professors and the students. The professors encourage active participation The professors encourage active participation in class. You have to come prepared. You have to have done your reading, which is typically quite a bit of reading. I would say, for example, many times I would have to come to seminars having read about 4 or 5 different books, each of which was 300, 400 pages long. You must do your reading. You must talk actively in class, be alert, be prepared for professors asking questions. And there's also quite a bit of interaction with fellow students, I would say. There's a lot of active dialogue back and forth, professors, students, etc. And the seminars are typically about 3 hours long, and they occur once a week for each class. And I would think that it's pretty specialized. I mean, I received a master's degree in French language and literature from Princeton, in fact, this past January. And I specialized in 19th century French literature. For that, it was a 2-year program, and it was very rigorous, extremely intensive. And in addition to attending class regularly, in fact, class was mandatory. You had to go to class unless you were absolutely sick. You really had to be there. It was pretty much like a job, I would say. Not just school, but like a job. You had to be there. You had to be punctual, prepared at all times. And I also had to do teaching. Teaching was a very important part of the degree, as a matter of fact. Teaching would generally be every day. I had to teach 1 hour per day, and I had to prepare about 2 hours for each hour that I taught. I taught beginning French language courses. For example, I taught French 101 and French 102. Now, I taught Princeton University undergraduates who are extremely bright and hardworking, and I very much enjoyed my experience teaching. Basically, I taught the whole class from start to finish. I prepared the lectures. I graded the assignments. I even helped design the syllabi. It was quite a bit of responsibility, but it was actually an excellent teaching experience. And it was very invaluable, in fact, for me. Besides these requirements for teaching and for being in seminars, of course, you also had your active attendance in lectures. Lectures were a very important part of the experience as well. Generally, the department had people come over from all over the world, very famous professors. People who are at the top of their field come over, give lectures about their work, about their current research, etc. And they would just talk about their books, give book readings, and it was very important. It was very essential to the learning process as well, because you really needed to interact with other professors who are from other schools all over the world to really know what's going on in the field, you see. And I thought that was very invaluable, actually, to my learning experience. Lectures were pretty much mandatory. I mean, it was sort of not stated that it was mandatory, but basically that meant that you had to be there at all times, really. And I really enjoyed my experience. In fact, I love French literature. It was fascinating, and I enjoyed it because I got to specialize in a particular field, particular period, and also with professors who though they were very busy, were very involved with their students. They would guide you not only academically, but also psychologically to a certain extent. And they were friends. I mean, you could talk with them, you could have a coffee, you could have lunch with them. It was a very personal experience, and it was very important not only to get along well academically with everyone, but also, I think, socially. You see, it was a small department. I think my year there were about, let's say 6 students, and we all knew each other very well. It required a lot of participation. It required a lot of cooperation, especially. Cooperation, I mean, between the professors and students, and between the students as well. And I think there wasn't as much cutthroat competition as there would be at other schools, because at Princeton, it was a small department, and there were only a few students each year. So I think it just became very much like a family. And I enjoyed that aspect very much. And you also have the opportunity, of course, to meet people from other departments. And that is very important, so that you can really get a perspective of people who work in, let's say, different fields. For example, English literature, which is still closely related. You need to interact with people from different departments to enhance your learning experience, both academically and socially. And all in all, yes, I did enjoy my experience. However, it's very different from, I'd say, college. Extremely different in all the ways imagined. The workload is extremely rigorous. I mean, I'd say I worked extremely hard. Basically, I had one paper due per semester for each class. And let's say one presentation per semester for each class as well. And basically, the paper counted for the whole grade. Grades are not that important. It's different from college. The grades are important to get in, of course. But once you're in, you're in. And the grades take on less importance. What is important, however, is the research. How well you do research, your writing skills are extremely important. Also, your presentation. In terms of the impression you give the professors. Not just the work you do, but you got to give them the impression that you're very bright and that you're going to be a future scholar, I would say, is extremely essential. And they're there to guide you. I enjoyed my experience, and what I would recommend is, to anyone who is interested, is that they seriously think about what they want to do, what field they want to pursue, and also how long they want to take doing it. And getting a master's for me was practical, because afterwards, getting a master's, it's only for 2 years. Then I can go on and go work. However, a PhD program, which typically takes 5 years in my department, people who get a PhD generally have a lot of problems getting jobs, because once you have a PhD, you pretty much have to become a professor. And right now in the field of French language and literature, it is extremely difficult to get a position, especially one that is tenured. This is not necessarily true for every department, but at least in French language and literature, it seems to be the case. In fact, the top students from my department, actually even from Princeton, it's difficult to find a job, a tenure-track position anywhere in the country right now. So whoever pursues an advanced degree should think carefully about it, especially if that is a PhD. You should consider the many requirements for one, the length of time, difficulty of getting a position, and see if that's what you want. All in all, it was a tremendous learning experience, academically, socially, psychologically, and graduate school was something that I didn't quite expect at the beginning in terms of, I thought it would be much easier than it actually turned out to be. It is much, much harder. Much is demanded, much is expected, and it really is a job more than school, I would say.